this talk, adrenal fatigue. So we'll have a look today at, what actually is adrenal fatigue. It has been, sort of said by often people in the medical profession that it's not a real condition. There's a lot of things around it. So we're going to sort of uncover that today, and causes behind that, treatments that will really help. Now, in the natural medicine space, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox as such, that are really amazing support for adrenal and stress related conditions. So I feel it's an area that we can really get involved and really help, and we'll have a look at some of those. So also, as a herbalist, there's some lovely herbs that we can use. And the other thing here is that it's never just one symptom. We want to look at the body as a whole. We want to look at what's causing this issue. So we'll have a look at that today as well. So we might just kick off, and then everybody can join us. So as I said, do put your questions on. We should be around an hour today. I know everyone's busy and has things to do, so sometimes it can run on a little bit longer. But as I said, I'm more than happy to stay and answer any questions afterwards. So this talk actually is one I've done a couple of times at Balanced Living. I change it every time. And I change it because, even though adrenal fatigue has been around for a long time, we've just been in such sort of unique times, and it's an ever-changing world at the moment, and I think we need to kind of understand and support around that. So even though we've been treating adrenal fatigue for a long time, there are some different kind of burdens that are on us right now. I also really like this webinar because I spent quite a long time in a clinic in Sydney, and it was a thyroid clinic. We were also treating adrenal issues and hormonal issues. And I just began to see, that there's never just one thing here. We really need to look at, if is there a thyroid issue? Is there a hormonal issue? What's going on around that? So, I think it's I saw a lot of people, there's different stages here. I treated, probably thousands of women and men in that time. So there's so many different ways that this can affect you. So not only it's a really interesting subject, but it's also one that affects many people in different ways. So for those of you who haven't joined me before, my name's Toni and I'm a naturopath at Balanced Living. So so naturopathy really covers the whole spectrum of like herbal medicine, homeopathy, nutrition, reflexology, and then I also practice as an emotional code practitioner, which is looking at trapped emotions within our body. And we will have a look at the emotional kind of side of adrenal health as well. There's always another side to this. So I guess you can say, the modern era has been called the stress age. And, this was going on way before COVID, was ever around. And, mainly sort of due to the sort of high load of unrelenting stress that many people experience. And now, of course, we've got an added stress here since COVID, which brings on different drivers. So stress is definitely one of the main damaging drivers of chronic diseases. It reduces both physical and mental tolerance, and can also cause latent disorders to become active. Those kind of old sayings, don't get too stressed, it will kill you. Well, it can sometimes, obviously activate things that may be sitting within the body. So therefore, supporting patients' stress response systems is a critical component of any clinical treatment program. Anybody that I would treat in clinic, I would always address their stress response, what was causing it, what's underlying, and what's going on here. So, I think in that way, we never just look at one condition and one part of the body as being, that's your liver health, that's this. So with the adrenals, again, there's a lot going on around it. So, under the burden of chronic stress, our resilience, adaptation, it really wanes, and eventually leading to illness and disease. And stress can affect nearly every part of the body, including the heart, the gut, the thyroid, the immune system. And many of you that might be, struggling with a thyroid condition or gut conditions, this is all related. So, always go in. Let's take a thyroid condition, for example. I would never just treat the thyroid without treating the adrenals. You're never going to get to where you want to be unless you can get in and support the adrenal function. So it's controlled by a complex neuroendocrine system known as the HPA axis. This is hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and you may have heard of this. Plays a really important role in managing our energy levels, digestion, immune function, moods, memory, and cognitive function. So again, when you feel like you're experiencing a lot of symptoms, you possibly are, but it's where to differentiate these as to what you're going through. So stress is inevitable, right? And some of it is actually good for us. We do need a certain amount of stress. And, if you've got, that adrenaline pumping around the body, you're just about to do something, quite nerve wracking. It actually, gives you a bit of a high. But the problem is when this has been going on for too long and the body doesn't know when to switch off. The term adrenal fatigue was actually coined in 1998 by Dr. James Wilson, and many of you may know his website. He has some great products connected to that. And he was the first one that kind of really named adrenal fatigue as the body being overstimulated by chronic stress and burnout and shutting down and causing a variety of symptoms. So as I said, they're an essential part of life. We really do need them. And as part of the endocrine system, their role is to govern the fight or flight response. So the fight or flight, is when we're running away from an attacker, the body shuts down other things, digestion and other parts of the body so that we can perform. So several important hormones: cortisol, adrenaline, which is epinephrine, and norepinephrine. And so making sure that your adrenals produce the right amount of hormones is crucial. Too much or too little can create havoc within the body. And also we need the ability to keep up with the demands of life and even just, simple everyday tasks. So I do, just as I said before, adrenal fatigue has been going on for a long time, and some of you may have been suffering for years and maybe coming in and out of that pattern. But one thing I want to cover off at the moment is this kind of feeling, and what we're seeing quite a lot in clinic is pandemic fatigue. So, this was happening way before this pandemic happened, but for many of us, 2020 was an exceptionally stressful year and dominated, and our lives are still dominated by the coronavirus pandemic. So even with a vaccine on the horizon, we're likely to still need some stress management strategies to carry us into 2021. So, I think we would all consider ourselves to be very, very lucky here in Singapore, very, very low sort of rates. It's been managed very well. But many of us, we do have family worldwide, or we're from another country. There's many people sort of worldwide still plagued with uncertainty, and this can really affect your mood and your energy levels, and you may be finding that you are having to really kind of get a grip on yourself and pull back and really change your thought process during this time. So pandemic fatigue is actually is actually a phrase now. So, it's coined as describing a mental state where a prolonged heightened state of fear and caution leads to a form of burnout. And so this is what, specialists are starting to see. So it's not classified as a mental disorder. Nevertheless, the effects are real and have a real impact on those experiencing it. So signs to look out for here, and as well as, ourselves, our little people, I would say, especially any of you that have teenagers, it's been quite difficult for. Um, signs can include reduced socialization, feeling restless, sad, helpless, unmotivated, frustrated about things, and often sort of having low mood and energy, because I think we've all had to tone down our energy vibe a little bit. So there are some long-term worries about the pandemic and the toll it's going to take on mental health and emotional health around the world. So we really need to be mindful of our mental and physical health at this time. The other thing is, many of us have not been able to take the breaks or the holidays that you'd normally have. There was kind of, this initial excitement around Zoom and working from home. And now this, there's definitely another phenomenon called Zoom fatigue. And, it just feels like, we're always online to people. Wearing a mask might prove difficulty. Some people don't want to leave the house. We're constantly having to check in. All of these things can create social avoidance. So, I was sort of, asking everyone to be mindful of how you're feeling and acknowledge it, and to put some systems in place that really support you during this time. And if you were already dealing with some adrenal fatigue issues, this could have, enlightened that. So I just want to touch, before we sort of get into the nitty-gritty of adrenal fatigue, I just want to touch on the spiritual side of the organs. With anything we do in clinic, of course, it's very clinical. We functionally test. We look into the whole body as a whole. But unless we're really addressing our spiritual and emotional and mental side, when I don't think we're really going to get to where we need to. As I mentioned before, so practicing the emotion code, I unlock, or sort of, unlock from the body trapped emotions that may be causing chronic disease or pain in part of the body. And it's been really amazing, some of the things that have come out. I am just the tool to unlock your body, but your body is burying the subconscious things that you have been through for your whole life. And we would all have up to 10 or more trapped emotions within the body. So if you have something, if you have a pain or shoulder pain, neck pain, you're not quite sure why, you can't get it better, that will definitely sometimes be a trapped emotion there. So adrenal issues, it's said, is the failure to deal with some spiritual, emotional, mental, or physical issues, and it's manifesting disease in the body. So many healers believe that there's a link between how we live our lives and our health, and I truly believe that. So the adrenals, they're a sure telltale sign of the spirit body is out of alignment, so out of balance. And the metaphysical cause of adrenal fatigue is defeatism. So when you just feel like, and of course the burnout is exactly that. I can't go on, I can't do this, I feel defeated, I'm just worn out. I used to have clients in clinic that they were so burnt out that they'd be like, I just can't even be bothered to go on holiday. It's proving too much for me, that one step too far. So it's very much that defeatism and not trusting in yourself and not caring for oneself. So, I think, mothers very much, they put years into bringing up their children and constantly trying to work, trying to do stuff. Very much so, not caring for themselves. And the one thing I always bring back to people with adrenal issues is to bring it back to yourself and nurture yourself. Also, if unless you remove negative toxic relationships from your life, that energy flow will continue on. And we need to channel that into positive energy. So some of the things, the spiritual kind of side, we sometimes get butterflies in our stomach, and it's our body trying to tell us, excitement, fear, something, an intuitive feeling of what's going on. Definitely with toxic relationships and trauma, that can cause adrenal fatigue. And long sort of standing relationships that need to be reset, plus a stress overload. So that's very much something we need to take into consideration when looking at the response of supporting the adrenal function. The other thing I wanted to cover off here is you'll see like lots of articles that go, no, it's not a real condition. What is it, and the rest of it. I can honestly tell you, I've seen so many women. It's definitely a real condition, but what actually is adrenal fatigue versus a stress response? So, I think adrenal fatigue, adrenal exhaustion, it's been used to explain complex dysfunctions of the stress response. Obviously, if there are extreme issues like Addison's or Cushing's disease, they're of huge clinical importance. So, many sort of health professionals felt that it was just about, unless you were at this extreme diagnosis, that it must be something else. And this is where the antidepressants have been handed out, and you're in menopause, you're in perimenopause, you're just hormonal, you're just tired because you've got your kids. All of these things have kind of thrown out to cover, but really it's definitely a real thing. It's controlled by the brain. If we look at the sort of primary etiology of this, maybe there are some more accurate terms, like the HPA axis. So the common finding of low cortisol levels in subjects complaining of chronic stress is cited as adrenal fatigue. And we'll have a look in a second at testing around this. So, definitely low cortisol or DHEA levels are related to chronic stress, but again, it may be better related to the HPA axis, so the hypothalamus pituitary axis. Hypothalamus in the brain, pituitary in the back of the brain, don't forget, controls the thyroid, and the adrenal axis. So the body may just not be able to adapt back. So there's a down regulation in hormones. And so that's probably maybe a more accurate description of it. But we I think we know and understand the term adrenal fatigue, and we'll definitely continue calling it that for today's webinar. Okay, so let's just move on here. Do pop on any questions that you may have onto the chat line so far. So just a bit of the biology here. So the adrenal glands, they sit on top of the kidneys, and they control all of our stress responses. So you'll see there's over 500 hormones that are released in order to control our body. And we know that this is a very complex moment. So you've got the medulla that controls the fight or flight, and the cortex, which is responsible for our sex hormones and stress responses. So you can see there again relating back to the HPA function in the brain. So I want to cover off quite early on in this talk the Dutch test. So some of you may have had this done, but this test, it's the only one of its kind, and it really is the best testing out there at the moment to have a look at your sort of hormone profile, your adrenal profile, and also, your melatonin, your DHEA. So stands for Dried Urine Test for Comprehensive Hormones. And it was formulated to sort of improve on the hormone testing options available. So mostly, your sex hormones have been done by blood. It's pretty unreliable, and it also needs to be done on day 21 of the cycle. But this actually combines both the sex hormones and adrenal hormones. So what you're looking at, you never just kind of want to go in on one side, just the adrenals. Again, it can be tested, and some of you may have had it tested by saliva. That was much, much more accurate in a much better way than the blood test. But again, you're just looking at one side, and you're not looking at the sex hormones and some of the other hormones around that. So this test was kind of, brought about to have a look at the whole picture. And in addition, it'll look at the kind of daily pattern of free cortisol, along with your melatonin, which is your sleep hormones. Often sleep is affected in the same way. And then it also looks at some of your organic acids, which can be really important to get a true look at some of the neurotransmitters in the brain, also your B12 levels and your B6 levels. So very important test. And do let me know if you maybe have had it done for your adrenal testing, or you want to know anything more about it. So why we use it. So definitely for adrenal, if adrenal fatigue is suspected, in conjunction, if somebody's got chronic fatigue, depression, autoimmune disorders, thyroid issues. So whilst it's not testing the thyroid hormones directly, we would test those with blood. We would definitely like to have a look at these adrenal hormones to get the full picture. We also use it for any fertility issues, PCOS, painful periods, endometriosis. If you're on hormone replacement, we have a look there. If there's sleep issues, we have a look at the melatonin. So you would collect the test, the dried urine, through 5 points of the day. And if you are having a problem sleeping, you take an extra test in the night when you wake. And then it can have a look at what's happening with those melatonin levels and whether they're dropping or your adrenal function is waking you in the night. For those of you that possibly are waking, the time is 2 to 3. You can sometimes get a bit of a burst of cortisol, and you can be sort of very awake, and it might be quite difficult to get back to sleep. So we definitely want to check the DHEA levels. So DHEA is another hormone released by the adrenals. It's our anti-aging hormones, and we expect it to decrease every decade. But we want it to be within levels. So if it's low or high, there starts to be cause for concern, and it's measured on your age, basically. Really importantly, this test is used for estrogen dominance. We want to have a look at how your estrogen is metabolizing through your body, and whether we need to open up pathways to lower your risk of estrogen-related cancers such as breast, cervical, and uterine. So, overall, as you can see, it's a really, really important, test, and one that gives us a lot of information. I sort of highly advise, women in younger, if they're having, menstrual issues or PCOS, that kind of thing, but definitely when you're in perimenopause or menopause, just to have a really good look at what's going on there. So yeah, do pop on if you have any more questions around that, let me know. So you'll see here that there can be many root causes of abnormal lab testing. So it's never just like, oh, your cortisol is low, or, it's high. There's reasons behind this. Let's have a look at sort of high cortisol. which initially in stage 1, we start to see high cortisol at certain points of the day, and that starts to alert us to the fact that there's adrenal dysfunction there. So of course stress is the obvious one here, people that have been under high levels of stress, but also if there is some blood sugar irregulation. Let's say you're having a lot of coffees. I have dealt with people in clinic that have had up to maybe 10 coffees a day. And it's because they have adrenal issues and they're just trying to keep themselves moving or functioning if they're working hard. So and then there's kind of a backlash from that, which is actually making it worse. Also if there's an acute infection in the body, that obviously raises the high cortisol. Low cortisol, very much third stage, very much in that burnout stage. So you do perhaps test and have a look for Addison's, but also with the sleep dysregulation, if there's pituitary tumors or dysfunction there. Hypothyroidism can really mess with that high and low cortisol, and if not addressed, ending up in that third stage burnout. I've seen it a lot, and I've seen, where people then have had to give up work and really devote, a period of time up to 2 years to really bring their body back. And so the key is to support ourselves now before we get to that stage. It's much harder to bring back. And takes, a lot of work and a lot of dedication from yourself to do that. So low and high DHEA, again, it's our anti-aging hormone, and also controls our sex hormones, so controls our libido as well. You can see on this chart again, somebody with asthma, if they're on an inhaler, that can affect DHEA. Certain medications will affect alcohol, nicotine, adrenal tumors. So what we really want to do, and I think this is where functional medicine practitioners come in, is where they will really start to look at underlying causes here, and not just kind of okay, you're stressed, that's why. It's what else is going on in the body. So we mentioned here before, you can see in this diagram about the HPA axis, so the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and of course you've got your pineal glands that control that melatonin, and we'll have a look at some of those key adrenal charts in a second. Now, adrenal fatigue is primarily known as stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and that's possibly of what you've heard it from in the past. So as of late, they've kind of retermed these things. So stage 1 is now called the alarm phase, stage 2 is resistant phase, and stage 3 is exhaustion phase. And it's felt that possibly these are kind of more connected to what people are feeling. So stage 1 being the alarm phase, this is referring to the initial symptoms when your body is under stress. So heightened senses, increased pulse rate, elevated blood pressure, agitation, and sweating. And some of you may feel, when you're having when you're going through that, it could bring on panic attacks, or, that increased kind of heightened awareness. So during this alarm phase, the body releases cortisol, followed by a boost of adrenaline to help you deal with the problem. So it's largely an autonomic, meaning it's involuntary or unconscious. So there's not much you can do about that. As I said, sometimes it's a good thing to get this burst of cortisol. So the chemical body in your response is depending on the stressor. So depending what's happening to you. And if there's an alarm, a really sort of big alarm phase going on, the immediate surge of adrenaline would be the same as when you see something that frightens you. You can feel it in your body. So that, different levels here. So instead of releasing a large amount of cortisol and adrenaline as it does when you're frightened, your body may only release a small amount when you're stressed. So there's little you can do about this. It's a good thing. It's a response, and it's an autonomic system in the body. But and things like sort of breathing awareness, mindfulness, deep breathing. I think I always like a little bottle of rescue remedy. If you're having that overwhelming panic sensation, then I think bringing in some of those techniques to bring it down, are really good to learn. Now, as we said, that's the first stage. Now, resistance stage is when you've had that kind of initial shock of alarm, and your body then needs to begin to repair itself. Because prolonged exposure of cortisol and adrenaline obviously can have negative effects on your health. So at the start of the resistance phase, your endocrine system releases less cortisol and adrenaline, and your heart rate slows and your blood pressure returns to normal. But for a time, your body will remain on high alert. So you're just still alerted. If that situation is stressful, you don't just return back to normal. It takes time for the body, the hormone levels, the heart rate, the blood pressure, they will eventually return to normal. And of course, this is ideal. And this is what we want to happen. And that's obviously how we respond to a stressful situation. The problem is, when our body is not returning and it stays at this prolonged level of stress. And when this happens, the body continues to secrete cortisol and adrenaline, and your heart rate and your blood pressure stay elevated. So not as high as the initial shock as when the stress hit, but then above your normal resting numbers as such. So over time, if you are just getting used to this prolonged stress, your body adapts to it. And so the prolonged presence of these hormones in the body, your body it becomes a new norm for your body and for your heart rate and for your blood pressure, and the hormones stay raised. So often when testing in stage 1, which is the alarm stage, you might see certain points of the day, or you might see that the HPA axis is not responding or returning to normal. In stage 2, you start to see, in this resistance phase, you start to see the cortisol maybe high at points and maybe low at points. And it just means that your body is not respond to the normal kind of levels of where it needs to be. So it means that even when the stress is abated, your body will still function as if the stress is present. So characterized by irritability, frustration, poor concentration, the brain fog comes in, and if you are under this for too long, your body starts to enter the third stage, which is the exhaustion phase. And this is when we see on the levels very low cortisol levels on the charts. So the exhaustion phase is obviously the direct result of too much stress for too long, and your body no longer has the physical, emotional, and mental stress to deal with ongoing stress. We're all different, so we're all genetically made up different. What might stress somebody out, someone else would thrive on. Okay, so we don't know how we're going to handle this prolonged stress, and it doesn't mean that somebody is weaker than someone else. It just means we all have different things going on, and different ways of dealing with things. Definitely, when in this exhaustion phase, some people can handle weeks, months, years, whilst others can probably only handle a few days. And some of the symptoms that kick in would be, extreme fatigue, especially morning fatigue. Sometimes people get a big kind of burst of energy if they then are awake after 11 o'clock. You can get that 2 till 3 or 4 wake up in the night. You can be feeling like you're really burnt out, which of course leads to feelings of depression and anxiety, and also a decreased stress tolerance. So you find that all of a sudden things that you could deal with, a while ago, you suddenly can't deal with. And it's in this exhaustion stage that really your immune system can really start to weaken and start to bring on stress-related illnesses. And so there's also an allotistic resistance. So sometimes, the body just can't adapt back. And I see this quite a lot in certain kind of major cities where even in younger people where they're kind of just feeling like they have to prove at work, prove at social life, just going for it. The body, this allostatic resistance starts to have a wear and tear on the body, and then the adrenal fatigue kicks in. So do let me know if you've got any questions so far on that. So again, let's have a little look at what some of these low and high cortisol, the low was once considered, as we said, adrenal fatigue, but, very, very fatigued adrenal glands, incapable of producing enough cortisol to keep us going. And this is what we'd look for on, say, a Dutch test or a saliva test. If there's low free cortisol, more than 1 point, often, in that kind of exhaustion phase, we would see it just flatlining along. That adaptive cortisol, as I mentioned before, low or high free cortisol at least 1 point. So an up and down type pattern. For any of you that have had this testing, you may want to go back and have a look at your results and have a look at where you're out there. And the high cortisol, high free cortisol, at least 1 point with the high metabolized cortisol. So that's when we start to see this adrenal dysfunction. So some of the symptoms we're looking at, definitely the feelings of burnt out, a general lack of enjoyment in life, prolonged, fatigue. Fatigue is a tough thing. I would say again, like connecting this to the thyroid, that a lot of the symptoms can cross-check. So, we very much check on what are adrenal symptoms and what possibly are thyroid symptoms or sex hormone symptoms. So, looking at those of a whole, start to give us a much better picture of what's going on. As I mentioned, you may get second wind at 11. Very much blood sugar dysregulation. I've had clients come to me and, they just are madly craving sugar. It's so crazy they can't do anything about it. Lots of digestive disturbances, very much leads to problems with the gut and leading on to leaky gut. So we would always have a look in that area. And of course, like different cardiovascular and sex hormone changes. If you look sort of on from a physical point of view, you might see that the skin increases more oil production. Somebody might get adult acne. Hair loss is a very big part of both adrenal and thyroid health. With the hair loss thing, we look at all of your nutrients, your zinc levels, your iron levels, but definitely your thyroid testing, full thyroid panels, adrenal testing, and just having a look at that, healing and repair of the telogen phase of the hair loss. You might see on your hands, so on your fingertips, you can have a look. So there's vertical lines. Um, the cortisol causes lower levels of collagen, and also, of course, sweaty palms, thyroid, adrenal type relation. If you notice that your eyes underneath are looking quite dark, of course, we've always had a look and related those to kidneys, but it's very much fluctuating cortisol levels and pressure on the liver and kidneys. So you can very much see when that's the case. If there's thyroid issues, the face can often be quite puffy. So on the feet, for those of you that enjoy a bit of reflexology, or I highly recommend you go in for any of the foot massage places here, as it's amazingly relaxing if you like your foot being touched. But there are 2 points to note. The adrenal reflex you'll see on the diagram. And if you press on that, you'll find that it's quite painful. You'll feel it raise, because all of us are kind of, running at some kind of pace and releasing cortisol. So it's mostly painful for most people. And if you release that, it really feels good. And then you'll also look at that solar plexus reflex. Is kind of right in the center where that diagram is. I would take it down a little bit, actually, right in the center of that pad of the foot. Again, that controls our nervous system, and by manipulating that, you can really feel a sense of calm come over you. And also on the hands as well. If you are feeling stressed, you can press that point on your hand, and it will calm you down. I often have a look in people's eyes to see if there's stress response. So you'll see there those white lines around the eye, around the iris, coming out, like shooting out, and that often shows an adrenal function disorder and a stress response in the eyes. Of course, our eyes very much will show this. So yeah, some things to kind of look out for as such there. So in clinic, we use a 3-step program to treat adrenal fatigue and dysfunction. So as I mentioned before, look at the primary stress, anxiety, exhaustion, thyroid issues. What's going on here? What has caused this? What do we need to acknowledge, accept? What's been going on in somebody's life that has led to this? We also need to kind of really have a look at the underlying neurological and hormone patterns and support accordingly. If somebody is in perimenopause, we need to support that. Low testosterone, whatever is going on with that, we need to address that as well. There's other connections related to medications that you might be on, molds, gut health, and other toxins in the body. And if you have a patient, or you yourself are struggling with, low mood and sadness and depression, then, we need to come in with a protocol to support the neurotransmitter function. So really wanting to have a look at what is going on as a whole, but also, what are the drivers behind this adrenal dysfunction or adrenal fatigue, and, try and support around that. So starting off with 3 key nutrients, that really nourish and support the body and the adrenal health. So you've got your vitamin B complex, and I always say, if there's one or two things, 2 or 3, my top things that everyone should take, a really good quality vitamin B complex is fantastic, supporting healthy mood, stress, energy levels, hormones, you name it, liver health. We want a good quality one. If you do have any MTHFR SNPs on your genes, your genetic health, obviously, we want to give you one. Different forms of the vitamin B. Always have a look at your B12 levels when you get your blood tests done, to check that. But yeah, a really key nutrient. And you can really up the dose as well during times of stress. You can go, so you're taking 1 capsule a day. Often you can go up to 4 capsules a day with no problem at all there. We do sort of burn through our B vitamins. And the same with magnesium. I would say just a general all-rounder for the body. Supports our neurotransmitters, supports serotonin and dopamine levels within the body. Also our muscular system, our nervous system. Wonderful for, electrolytes. Great for, again, mentioned that for children as well. Great in pregnancy. It's very safe mineral, and one we can't make ourselves. So often find that many people are very low in magnesium, and you'll start to sort of see effects from that. Now, the vitamin C, again, is critical for adrenals, and we really sort of need large amounts to support. And again, when we're stressed, we would burn through that vitamin C. So just, the start of some key nutrients to look at. In clinic, we use a lot of the health force superfoods, just because they have a really nice quality and the way they're made up. So the truly natural vitamin C powder is great. It's got some extra camu and cherry areoles in there, which are great. I like a magnesium glycinate, so as not to kind of cause problems with the gut function. If you are needing a little bit, if you're constipated at all, you can go for a magnesium citrate. And of course, like a good Premier Complete B, good high doses and good quality. I can't stress enough the importance of having good quality products. So if you do pay a little bit more, it's always worth it. And of course, the right dosage. So of course, some of you may know also a group of herbs, an amazing group of herbs called adaptogens. And adaptogens are stress response modifiers. So they support the body and increase the ability to cope with stress. They also regenerate those stress responses. So adaptogen herbs, they're actually nourishers. They're not going to stimulate. They're not going to stimulate the body so that you're kind of in that high alert state. And they would protect your body. So they also help. We'll have a look at ashwagandha, withania in a second, and that's a wonderful herb, one of my favorite herbs that helps support with energy production, endurance, recuperation, and of course we want to support a healthy immune system. So some of those, sorry, just move that over. Some of those herbs, so astragalus, you may know as an immune herb, but it's actually an adaptogenic herb, but also it helps support the immune system at the same time. So a really, really nice immune modulating herb. So American ginseng, another one, non-stimulating. So some of the ginsengs can be stimulating, but American ginseng is a nice adaptogenic supportive herb. Withania, also known as ashwagandha, really potent adaptogen for stages 1 and 2. And as I said, it's literally, when I used to mix up liquid herbs, I would literally put it into nearly every mix because it's just such a beautifully supporting herb for young and old. And, because of its adaptogenic nature, it just has a wonderfully supporting effect on the body. Rhodiola, you might know. Let me just pop into this chat line. Okay, where to get astragalus? So I'll show you. So you can we have a sort of range of single herbs in clinic, or you can get astragalus as part of an immune product. Sometimes if you have a look, at some of the kind of the labels, you'll see that often it's part of immune formulas. or you should be able to get it on its own. Just, again, you can use it if you are struggling with your immune system in any shape or form. It's great. I think they normally do it in combination, to be honest. It may be astragalus, echinacea, licorice, something like that. So rhodiola is another herb that's sort of gaining a lot of interest just because of its adaptogenic nature, and really good to get in there and support energy production. Again, a herb that's sort of really coming to light. A really lovely mix would be, rhodiola, withania, American ginseng, and licorice. The licorice is great for the digestive system. Also a really lovely adaptogenic herb. Only thing to be mindful here is if you have thyroid issues or fluid issues, it can kind of cause a little bit of an issue there. Holy basil is another one that's a really nice support for the adrenal health and bringing equilibrium into the body. Schisandra is a lovely one, adapting to stressful situations, mental endurance, also a really good liver herb. And I put in some medicinal mushrooms here now because I'm a huge fan of medicinal mushrooms and their uses. And I think in the last kind of 5 years, I think they've really kind of really come to light again. So Reiki, shiitake, what's some other ones? Sorry, let's have a look at this question. Medicinal mushrooms have a really lovely effect in that, again, they are they're modulating. So if you have an autoimmune, mushrooms, not to be confused with magic mushrooms, in case you were interested there. The medicinal mushrooms, there's things like lion's mane, chaga, and they're often come in combinations. Anybody suffering with autoimmune conditions, they're a wonderful support for the immune system by leveling it out and supporting adrenal health, also supporting immune health as well. And they came to light actually during COVID, that they were actually a great support for anyone that had contracted COVID. Yes, it means so you take 4-sigmatic coffee that has mushroom components. Yeah, that the 4-sigmatic is great, isn't it? And a really nice start to the day and support. So I really like that one too. And great, yeah, to get those medicinal mushrooms in. We can get them both in herbal extract or dried extract. I think at clinic we have Health Force Superfoods adaptogenic mushrooms, and that's a combination of them. And again, even if you feel like you're coming down with something, or you've been sick, or you can't kick it, get onto your mushrooms, and they're really supportive. So some of the products in clinic that we have that have these herbs in them, but they're in tablet form. Well, there's Adrenal L-Aid, which is a liquid mountain meadow herbs. That's a liquid formula, and adrenal support. That would have the withania, rhodalia, the licorice in there. We've got the adaptogen R3 is a really good, probably one of the top adrenal supporting products in there in the clinic. A really nice formula, and just it has that kind of herb should be quite dynamic to the body, and this definitely has that effect on the body. And also Premier Research Labs adrenal support. We do also have a range in clinic. We tend to use Designs for Health amongst other kind of practitioner products, but we would also look at using an adrenal glandular if somebody is going into stage 3 of adrenal dysfunction. Sorry, I keep moving this around so you can see the slides a bit better. So yeah, adrenal, you'll see at the bottom here, adrenal cortex or bovine, when you're needing something a little bit stronger than stage 2 support or alongside, then we would bring in a product that that is a glandular and is a little bit stronger on supporting the adrenal function. If you have if you can't, you know, if you're halal or you can't take any sort of pig products or cow products, then we wouldn't be able to give you that. But the Adrenatone products are really good. Other things that are great for supporting CoQ10, you know, that energy support. L-tyrosine comes in for a great memory support. Vitamin E, a great antioxidant for the brain, also the adrenal function. And phosphatidylserine, when I start to see the body just slightly going out and there's a maladaptation and there's mood changes, definitely I would go in with some phosphatidylserine, which maintains that, you know, it brings back the healthy cortisol levels. So that's really good. And of course, the adrenal cortex there. Let me know if you do have any questions on this. So other support, you know, the ashwagandha, which is withania at night, is lovely. It resets the circadian rhythms. Definitely adding the magnesium. So, you know, as I said, many of us are deficient, and that's a major factor in the HPA axis dysfunction. If you are sensitive to caffeine and you're trying to fix an adrenal issue, it is best to take the caffeine out for a little while and replace it maybe licorice teas, Romania teas. Romania is another great herb in autoimmune conditions. Lots of potassium-rich foods. We'll have a look at the foods in a second. There's a real kind of problem with blood sugar dysregulation when your adrenals are out. So really kind of looking at balancing the blood sugars there. You can look at things like chromium, herbs like coleus, gymnema, you know, all really lovely kind of blood sugar balances. And of course, that adrenal glandular, which is like an additional building block to strengthen and tone the adrenal glands, but it is only under practitioner supervision. We just need to kind of monitor what's going on. So what are some stress busting tips? Like, of course, move your body, you know, whether that's in yoga, Pilates, aerobic exercise, you know, be a little bit mindful of, like, you know, I've had lots of personal trainers with adrenal issues where they've just tried to smash their body too much, but a little bit of aerobic exercise is actually good, but, you know, within that balance. You know, many people find practicing gratitude. Write a journal. What are you grateful for? You know, nurture yourself. Our body really kind of responds to being grateful for what we have. And, you know, practicing, even if, you know, every now and then just write down a few things that you feel grateful. Get back to nature. Now, I know that many people I've spoken to, definitely since, you know, we've been kind of, you know, in Singapore, unable to leave, the getting back to nature has become really, really important. Whether it's a big, small, just take yourself off for a little walk. There's some beautiful walks on the island. You know, the greenery, the plants, these amazing old trees, you know, just soak that in. And again, our bodies really respond well to that. If you have a meditation practice or a breathing practice, really get into regularly doing that. Meditation, you know, even if it's for 10 minutes a day, really sort of like calms and responds to, you know, the brain synapses. And there's a lot of research being done in that area now. And, you know, recognize your resilience. Like, know that you are stronger than you think you are when you're burnt out. Know that you can bring yourself back from that, that you can support yourself and flourish and grow again. You know, do not think that this is over and that you will never again feel like how you did once feel. And I think that's a really interesting key thing is patients would say, I just don't feel like myself anymore. And, it's a really interesting, and it's a very true point. So you can bring that back and you can feel like yourself again and feel like, you have a lot of life and living in you. And of course, laughter is the best medicine. Surround yourself um, with people that make you feel good, that support you. Um, so we need a diet that really reduces inflammation, oxidative stress. So whether that's, we often put people in clinic on like a 30-day reset. I think Jen has a talk coming up next month on the inflammatory reset. But basically, we're doing it with clients all of the time, just reducing inflammation. So taking out the dairy, the gluten, the sugar, the caffeine, the alcohol, and just resetting the body for 30 days. I can't tell you also the programs that we run at Balanced Living. Um, the changes that I see in people in 30 days is incredible. And you don't think it's a long time, but it definitely starts, the body starts to respond immediately. So, look at putting in a plan to reduce that stress on the body. Definitely look at gut issues. If there's dysbiosis, so an overgrowth of bacteria in the body, definitely linked to mood disorders. Look at your probiotics. Look at possibly, we do GI map testing, having a look for parasites, bacteria, overgrowth. Looks at your healthy microbiome. Very, very important for adrenal function and healthy brain chemistry. Plenty of filtered water. This is like one of my things I always stress. If you're on tap water, try to get yourself off the tap water. Even a kitchen side jug, the Epic water filters are really good. Like we sell those in clinic. Then take out 99% of tap water contaminants, and just taking out some of those metals in the body really gives us an opportunity to start to heal there. Um, replace your old table salt with Himalayan salt. Lots of good benefits for the body. Don't be shy. You can use plenty of Himalayan salt on your food. Good essential fatty acids, whether that's through your food, such as salmon, nuts, avocado, or in the form of, a DHA, EPA, DHA, for the structure of the brain. Definitely make sleep a priority. I know that with adrenal dysfunction, this can dislodge some of the sleep, but we would, again, like in clinic, look at really working to get that sleep back and make it a priority. Our body does this healing. So get your groove on. We want to kind of we want our bodies to go back into a nice circadian rhythm. So through exercise, just remember, with your circadian rhythm and with your sleep, everything you do during the day sets you up for that night's sleep. So, whether that's your coffee in the morning, or, whether you're doing some exercise, a walk, all of that kind of thing sets you up for your night's sleep. And maybe, be strategic with your coffee. Try a 2-week break, see how you feel. I definitely know that when I am not on coffee, my energy levels are much more balanced. I don't get that dip in the afternoon. And I feel good. However, I do like a cup of coffee every now and again. But, I think if you can make it an every now and then instead of an every day, the body really responds to that as well. So definitely adding adaptogen herbs, and have a look at Dr. Wilson's website. There's lots of really interesting information on there. And then just finishing off with the bloods, obviously highly recommended Dutch test or saliva panel for the adrenal functions. We want to have a look at DHEA, melatonin, full thyroid bloods. Make sure you get a full panel to get the picture done. We want to look at blood sugars, glucose, insulin, HbA1c, looking at pre-diabetes, and then a full blood workup, including your nutritionals, the folate, the B12 levels, iron, vitamin D levels. There's also a questionnaire, an adrenal questionnaire on Dr. Wilson's site. So if you want to have a look, go through that and you'll see where your sort of issues are. And finally, this wheel, I put this wheel together because I feel like we need a really well-rounded balance in our life. This includes nutrition, this includes meditation. We want to be in a really good community. We need to move our bodies. We want, good relationships, non-toxic relationships, and we want to support our emotional health. And I think if we can, strive to get a little bit of all of this into our life, we are then starting to support ourselves a lot better. So let me know. There's me saying I wouldn't go on too long. Thank you all for bearing with me here. Let me know if you've got any questions. Let me just move that. Let's have a look. There's a few questions coming up here, so we will look at these here. Okay, so Tanya, in case you're at stage 3 already, what would you advise on taking? So Tanya, again, I'd look at kind of what was going on, what's caused you to get to that stage, or if there's thyroid dysfunction, hormone dysfunction, and we would support that. With stage 3, I think we really come in with the glandulars, plus the adaptogenic herbs, plus really looking at your mineral and vitamin kind of levels. I often I work with a compounder. I often compound a formula that puts this together for adrenal and thyroid patients, so that we are kind of nourishing things like P5P, taurine, the silica, lots of these kind of different nutrients, and then as I said, then really supporting in with a adrenal cortex and adrenatone. But you feel free to expand on that if you want to sort of tell me a little bit more about what's going on there. So Tanya, also, I love to be outside, but recently feel even more than ever that I cannot really connect with earth and be grounded. Is this only me, maybe? Okay, so is anybody else experiencing this? Because I'd love to hear whether this is something that possibly, Tanya, would you feel that this might be something connected to where we're at currently, and this kind of a bit of a pandemic fatigue, this kind of a lot of people feeling trapped and frustrated and not, trying to kind of control ourselves from really wanting it to do and get out and break out. Obviously it's a very unprecedented time of life. Do you think that is making you feel that you're not able to ground yourself? Again, I would maybe, obviously don't stop and do, take yourself off to different places, maybe if there's anywhere you haven't been before in Singapore, but and just try that reconnection, or try and meditate somewhere in nature if that's, if you have a practice there. So 3 slides before, if you tell me what slide that is, I'll go back to that slide and I'll let you have a look. Thanks for the adrenal story. Have a nice day. Thank you, Inga. Thanks for joining. I know we've met before. So 3 slides back is maybe diet and lifestyle. Let me know if that's the one you wanted, and I'll try and move these things around. So So Tony, yeah, thanks for sharing that. So maybe it could be feeling trapped a bit, even being safe here. Yeah, I totally get you. And I said, really appreciate you sharing that because, and that's why I added that little bit today um, about pandemic fatigue, because I think, sometimes perhaps we feel guilty, but also we are trapped on a tiny island, and, which is very different to countries which can get out and about. Definitely I look at, my Australian friends and they're off, beautiful outdoor camping, mountains, everything. Of course, Europe, not doing so well at the moment, but um, it wasn't so long ago they were taking summer holidays. We have had, we had a fairly strict lockdown. We have a fairly tight guidelines here, and although we're thankful for that, um, it definitely can start to have an effect and fatigue with us. And I do think that potentially is the cause. Okay, so the one with the bone broth. So with the diet, it's said leafy greens and cooked spinach. Yeah, so sometimes spinach has got some quite sort of high nitrates and stuff. So it's quite good to kind of break down. Again, I guess relating to some of the thyroid information, they say, with the broccoli, kale, or the greens. It's actually kale that's found to have the highest level in them. But the broccoli, just maybe alternate some of the Brassiaceae family. Definitely include them in your diet. The other thing, of course, with if there's any gut health, you might want to break down your vegetables. Sometimes the raw kind of diet is difficult to digest if your digestion isn't working quite as well as it should. As I said, remember, like always, have a look at getting your gut health into a good way first to support the mind, body, adrenals, thyroid, all of that. Hang on, so let me find, I'm still finding this slide. Okay, it might be this one. Let me know if it's this slide. And let me know if you have any other questions. So we are back in clinic. We're back in clinic. We are still doing Zoom consults, which was another kind of thing we gained from COVID. We're doing monthly webinars. So the next one you may have seen come out is Jen's doing the 30-day reset, which is always super popular. I think she'll go through with you how to do a reducing of inflammation and oxidative stress in the body. So that's always really good. We are doing a full week's kind of quite intense juicing detox with lots of different products and things, coffee enemas, that kind of thing. We're doing that at the end of April. So if you feel like you need a guided, supported detox, then do kind of join us for that. It's going to be really good. We do also offer in clinic, or still 15 minutes free. If you feel like you want to chat something over, see whether the clinic's right for you. If you have chats about the Dutch test, any of the testing at all, do get in touch and we'll pop you in for 15 minutes free. If not, you'll come and see us in clinic to have a look at your whole case if anyone's dealing with adrenal fatigue or they're relating to some of the symptoms today. Do remember, if you have had past or you are struggling with your adrenal function, it's one of those things that you really need to support always. You do get better, but you will find that your adrenals and your whole program, your whole body will need further support. So the enemas, yes, very interesting to learn about. So we will be definitely going into that as part of part of the detox. It can really kind of push that gut health and the detox on further. And a lot of people are frightened of them, but much easier to do. So just a question here about the adrenal connection with hypothyroid. So we did cover it at the top, at the beginning. So basically there's a huge connection if you have hypothyroidism. I mentioned that I would never just support the adrenals without supporting the thyroid. Never support the thyroid without supporting the adrenals. Even if you're on medication, you know, the thyroid needs support, the adrenals need support. If you don't get that support, you really aren't balancing out that hormonal. I look at it as if you've got your thyroid here, your adrenals, and your sex hormones, and you need to get all of them in balance for us to really kind of feel like we're functioning properly. If you do have a specific topic around hypothyroidism or something there, then you know, do pop it on. Let me know with the questions now. Let me know if anybody else has any other questions. The other sort of key point is in perimenopause, the adrenal function kicks in, the adrenals start to produce small amounts of your estrogen. And of course, as your estrogen is dropping, or in peri, it's going up and down, a bit like a roller coaster, then that it starts to put further pressure on your adrenals. So if you are in peri or menopause and you do notice that you are struggling, you know, with your stress levels and some of these things, that would be why. We definitely will cover like a hormonal perimenopause topic at some point again this year, because it is such a huge topic for women. And again, if there's something that you really want us to cover, you know, do let us know, because we can certainly, you know, to do a talk on that. We will be looking at another talk fairly soon on supporting ourselves around vaccinations. We won't comment on whether or not you should have a vaccination, but definitely if you are having this, then we'll show you how to support your body around this before and after. And I think, you know, there's some really key products you can take and some really good stuff there. So that will be coming up too soon. So perimenopause webinar. Yeah, do you know what? It's my Christina. I'll definitely do it, because it's a very big topic, which of course is close to my heart, because I've been through it. So I really understand where women come from. And again, I've supported a lot of women, and I feel like perimenopause is an area there's a little bit forgotten. Kind of goes childbirth, menopause, and there's this huge area in between that we are needing to look at. So that's always an interesting key thing. All right, so sorry, I didn't see, Mitali, your quick thing about the best way to test adrenal functioning. So you may have missed the Dutch test stuff at the beginning, but we will send out recordings. So have a look at the Dutch test. So it's a dried urine, still covers 4 to 5 points throughout the day you're collecting, but it also looks at your sex hormones as well, plus DHEA, adrenal, and some organic acid. So that's the best testing out there at the moment. Cortisol saliva test is also very good to have a look at, and much better, I would say, than the bloods. The bloods really don't tell us a lot there, often kind of false readings. So have a listen, and of course do get in touch if you have more information, if you want to know more about the Dutch test. And we carry them in clinics, so Prima always has a stock of them there. Okay, so look, thank you so much everyone today. Like I really sort of taken up quite a lot of your time, and I think As I said, I hopefully have given you some information on adrenal function. And I know it is a big topic. It's not something to be taken lightly. And I know it's an all-encompassing thing to go through. So if you do need support, do yell out. And thanks for all your great questions and involvement today. I always really appreciate it when there's input, and I want it to be, collaborative. So thank you so much once again, and hope to see some of you in clinic or in the store. I'm always around on Wednesdays. If you're in the Living Cafe, come say hi. And I'll catch up with you all very soon. Thank you so much.